Hello and welcome to Efficient Strategy Gaming. Today we're going to be doing a beginner's guide to Hearts of Iron 4. So we're going to go over a lot of the basics of Hearts of Iron 4, including how to use the user interface and how to set up armies, how to set up navies, just very bare bones, basic things. It is No Step Back DLC, and I've been getting a lot of comments from viewers about how to do basic things in Hearts of Iron 4, so that must be because there's a new DLC coming out, and there's a lot of new players, which is awesome. Welcome in, boys. Let's get right to it. So we are in the country selection screen in single player. So I just went to the main menu, hit single player, and now we're in the country selection screen. You can pick any of these like major countries up here. As you can see, I have other countries as well. A lot of these countries are unlocked via DLC. If you do not have a DLC, but you still want to play a country, you will be able to do so by hitting other countries. And then literally you can click around to whatever you want. Now, you're going to get a basic focus tree if you click on other countries. So just be aware of that. So there's just a vanilla focus tree that you get. All right, so I'll explain to you what focus trees are. We're going to be playing Germany because most of you will probably want to play Germany at some point. And down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you have different difficulties. If this is your first time playing, you could go civilian, but after you get a few hours in the game, a few hundred hours, you could easily do regular, and it'll be challenging. You might not be able to get everything that you want done, but I would think that you should be able to play the game on regular if you have about 100 hours of the game. Maybe even less if you play a lot of different types of strategy games. Iron Man modes means that you can't use back saves and you cannot get achievements. So be aware of that. Historical AI focuses. Always keep this checked because I kind of feel like this is a World War II game. What's the point of playing it non-historically? So that just means that Germany will go down its normal focus tree to like start war in 1939 and do all the normal things that Germany does. And then France will do the same, UK the same, so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to load this game up by just hitting start, and then a menu will pop up that gives us a save game. And you just simply press save and play. No biggie there. And you will be able to return to this save whenever you want. You're not able to save game in real time, though, because we have Iron Man mode selected. So if you leave the game, a save will be created while you're in Iron Man mode. You could simply just go back to the load game screen and select the save that we just created. It's not shown here because we're in the game right now. Okay. So now we're going to go through all the UI aspects, the user interface aspects of Hearts of Iron 4, and I'll try to explain the basic concepts for you as we go, as we go along. So let's go from left to right via the top screen up here. First, you have your country's flag. Obviously, we're playing Germany. You click on that, and you're able to see this screen here that tells you a lot about your country's laws and governments, research and production, and military staff. So the first main thing that you guys need to understand as beginning players is what a focus tree is. Every country has one. All of the playable nations have one. It just depends whether you have the generic focus tree. This is it right here. You can see it's very small. Or if you have a custom focus tree, because of like you have a DLC, or there are of course custom focus trees in the base game as well. Like Germany will always have a custom focus tree. Okay, so what is a focus tree? Well, a focus tree drives the game. It drives World War II, basically. All the historical events, not all of them, but most of the historical events are because a country is clicking the focus tree. There is going to be alt history lines on these focus trees. For instance, you can oppose Hitler and you can return the Kaiser if you're Germany. Obviously, alt history, or you can go more historical. And for Germany, it's over here to the left, where you're going to go Rhineland. And there is, of course, going to be many different variations about what you can do. You don't have to go to war in 1939. You can go to war earlier or later. But typically, to start war, you would click on Danziger War whenever you wanted to start World War II. And so if you wanted to do it historically, you could. You just line up the focuses. They're typically 70 days to where you get it in September 39. And so you kind of have to calculate that out yourself. There's a lot of calculations that you have to do on the fly with this game. Just basic addition and subtraction, nothing too major. So why would I click on Danziger War instead of just say clicking on Poland and declaring war through justifying a war goal? Well, you basically get bonuses to taking over the country if you click on the focus here. And that is called cores. So you gain core on Danzig, you lose your claim on Poznan and Katowice, and Poland gets the event Danziger War. But getting the core on Danzig makes this more of a priority than having to manually justify a war goal over here, which you'll also see costs political power and takes a long time. So getting your war goals through the focus tree, in my opinion, is more preferable than manually justifying, unless you're doing some sort of speed run or something like that, unless you have a specific purpose. And just to expand upon the focus trees here, if you're more into the game and you're looking for a certain focus, we're going to look for a treaty with the USSR. You can search up here in the upper right-hand corner and you can find what you're looking for. You can also drill down the different focuses by research, industry, political power, manpower, stability. You're getting the idea, but the more you turn on, say you want to be more research oriented, you can just click on the beaker icon here, and these are all the focuses that give you bonuses to research. For instance, the order that you choose these focuses is incredibly powerful and needs to be thought out before you start the game. So if you wanted to make a lot of good tanks and go like Tank Germany, you might want to rush your industry first and then come down this way to get the tank bonuses. There's a many different ways that you can go through this kind of spider web of focuses, but you need to basically, that's not for this guide. We can look into it in a different guide. Other things about focuses, there are continuous focuses to the left here. You're not able to do them as Germany unless you unlock 10 or more of the focuses up above. These are quite good after you've done everything that you've wanted to do with the main focus tree. And you can look through them. They say, what they do, obviously. And they kind of like construction repair helps you repair things. Air production helps you produce air vehicles, like things of that nature. So I'll let you look through that yourself. So this tab right here will save 10 days on your focus. After this bar is filled up, you lose days. In other words, those days are not saved. So if I clicked the timer here in the upper right-hand corner and waited 10 days and then clicked our first focus, which is going to be Rhineland, it will save those 10 days. And you will see that this bar will fill up right here. Okay. I'm going to give you a little hint, a basic rule of thumb for focus trees. I like to go political power first. Rhineland gives you 120 political power. And it also raises world tension by 5. We'll get into that later. But the basic point here is you go political power first so that you could do things under the laws and government tab. So this is basically set up the way in the order of operations that you should pay attention to it in game. So when you get that political power, you should probably change your economy or like one of your political advisors first. I'm assuming that most of you are playing the game historically. So there's going to be a build-up ramp here. 1936 is not when World War II started. That's 3.5 years or so before World War II. September 1939 is the official start of World War II. So you have that ramp, that time to build up, prepare your country for war before war happens. So you want to generally buff your country's production to build military equipment as much as possible first, because that will stack as time goes on. It will snowball. Then you want to go for some research items. Then you want to go for military staff. This is just a general rule of thumb, but work from the top to the bottom. You do not want to click on every single one of these. You want to go through and judiciously choose which of these leaders are best for the particular time and situation that you're in. So typically as Germany, you want to snowball. You want to get that production ramped up. You want to have a strategy to change your economy. And as you go down the list here, your economy will get better and better. Research and production mainly buffs research in the different areas. If you want to build tanks, for instance, these help mainly with how your tanks function, but more importantly, the research speed, how fast you are able to research the individual thing that you're looking for. And then the military staff, when you're ready for war, the best bang for your buck is always going to be an infantry expert, especially when you're a beginner in the game, because you're not going to be able to micro as well. So battle planning infantry is where people typically start. So look for the infantry guy. That's going to be the best bang for your buck down here. Other hints and tricks, you can hover over your leader and you see that Adolf Hitler gives you 25% political power gain. Each leader will have different buffs and even debuffs. Diving in deeper to this screen, you will see that there are national spirits. You get national spirits and you alter national spirits through your focus tree. So you're going to have to look at your focus tree to alter any of these. And some of the nations have really bad debuffs. Let's see what Germany has here. Bitter loser, ideological drift defense 50%. So you're probably not going to get Germany to go away from fascism. General staff, division organization 5%, planning speed 25%. Okay, you can get into war quicker, and then your divisions will lose organization less quickly. That's awesome. MIFO bills. Wow, we got a list of buffs right there, and it debuffs political power. But this is offset by the fact that you have Adolf Hitler, and you also have 2 guys, I think even 3, that can buff your political power. Let me give you a little hint here about Germany. You don't need that much political power because Adolf Hitler has 25% political power gain. This will come off when the wars start. You don't have to worry about that. In other nations, you do. So it's a balancing act. The best way to figure this stuff out is dive deep into the game and do a few playthroughs. Don't worry about losing. Just get in there, start playing the game, and hit that reset button if you need to. It's no big deal. Don't try to come into Hearts of Iron 4 and like be perfect the first time you play it. There's a lot to learn here, guys. So let's continue on. There's some other things here that we can get into later, but basically this pie chart here expresses the amount of popularity of different parties within inside your country. And as you can see, the most popular party for the Germans here is the fascist party, with communist and Zentrum there as well. And if your goal is to stay with this political power, with this political party, it would behoove you to increase the brown bar here, because that is going to give you other buffs, and we'll go into that a little later. Okay, so moving from right to left, if you have any comments, any questions, just leave them down below here. But basically, this is my opus. This is my swan song. I basically have a guide channel here on YouTube. I do a lot of other stuff too, but my guide channel is mainly what keeps my YouTube channel alive. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and please leave comments below if you do. Okay, so moving from left to right, let's start at the top here. Political power. We've already talked about this, but each of these tabs are going to give you a breakdown of what's going on with the total numbers up here. So it tells you the minuses and the positives to how you're gaining political power. And political power can be used in many different ways. We already talked about justifying a war goal, choosing cabinet members. What else can you do with political power? I can't think of it right now, but you could get send attaché, improve relations, a lot of different things that we'll get into a little later. But basically, you could see that the political power change is 1.43 per day. That's a lot. And that is modified by the MIFO bills, which is negative 0.2, and Rhineland, which is negative 1. So yes, by working on a focus tree, you do get a political power debuff. And if I was to hit X there and not do a focus, I would not suffer that debuff that you see there. So that's a little more advanced thing for you guys. You can hold focus and get more political power if that's what you need. Okay, stability's up next. Stability helps your political power game. It helps reduce consumer factory goods, increase factory output, increase dockyard output, and then it also modifies the resistance. So having increased stability is incredibly powerful. You can get all those things. And at the top there, you'll see ruling party popularity, 9%. Okay, well, these are the ruling parties. So if you buff the fascist and you take out the communists and the Democrats, you will get a buff to your stability, buffing all these other things. You'll have so many downstream effects. So you need to pay attention right up here. These first few things that I've showed you are incredibly important. Okay, moving to the right, war support. War support is going to affect how much mobilization you have. So your manpower trickling in, the manpower available, and you can get more manpower here by using the conscription law, but you don't get it right away. It trickles in and it's modified by your war support. Daily command power gain multiplier. So if you have low war support, your command, your military command is not going to get as much power. And that's basically this tab right here allows you to do things with your army and give your generals different orders to give your armies buffs. So if you're going to war, yeah, you should have some healthy war support here. Surrender limit. If you have more war support, your country is willing to fight for longer. So you can lose more territory and not capitulate. Capitulate means basically your country gives up and you lose the game. Manpower. Manpower is modified by your conscription law right here. And I'm just keeping it incredibly basic, but it will also be modified by focus tree as well. So you can get national spirits, things like that. There's a lot of way to get more conscription. But basically, the basic way is through the conscription law over here, and you adjust this through political power. You see that it costs 150 political power points to change my conscription law one way or the other. Okay, moving along here. Other things to note about manpower: when you take out a country, you're not going to get the total manpower. Say I invade Poland, I'm not going to get all Poland's manpower. I'm going to get a little sliver of it because you're occupying a foreign nation. People aren't willing to join your forces. They're mad at you. And then you can see the different totals. There's roughly 250,000 in my army, 28,000 in my air force, and 21,000 in my navy. So it gives you a breakdown there. 0 in my garrison because we're not occupying foreign territory. So we'll go over garrisons a little later. Okay, factories. I don't use this tab very much. It'll tell you how many military factories and how many dockyards and civilian factories. Fuel tells you how much fuel, who's consuming it. Convoys. Convoys are used for trade. If you need to get raw materials overseas from a foreign country, you will need convoys to do it. And if your convoys are getting sunk by submarines or navies, then you won't be able to trade through sea routes. So that's very important. Command power we touched on. It grows per day, but basically you need it to do certain missions with Army, and Air Force. So we'll get into that a little later. Army experience can be used in a lot of different ways. The main way is to use Army experience. There's two main ways. The first way is to adjust templates. So that costs 5 Army XP to add this artillery regiment into this division template. We'll get into division templates later. The other way to use your experience is to make a variant of an existing tank or plane or ship. And if it's a tank, it's going to be Army experience. If it's plane, it's going to be Navy experience. And I'm sorry, if it's plane, it's going to be like a submarine or some sort of naval production item. If it's air experience, it's going to be a fighter or something like that. So let's take tank as an example. If I have Army experience, I can modify this Panzer II with engine, main gun, armor, and reliability. This is going to be changed with the No Step Back DLC. So this will be different, but I am sure the mechanic will stay the same. You trade Army XP for buffing your tanks in certain ways. Okay, what else do we got here? So you basically get the idea: Army, Navy, air experience. Let me show you the third way that you can use these points up here at the top. That is through research. So if we look at land doctrine, you can buff your research here. You can get 100% bonus by trading 100 Army XP. Be careful with this. You need your Army XP. It's very important. So don't just do that frivolously. Like you're going to have a plan for all these things that you're clicking on. These tabs right here are just notifications. So I could click on research or construction. We haven't done that yet. And they're mainly notifications for these tabs over here. Let's go over the tabs right here first. So the decisions tabs brings you into the events and decisions area here, where you can further trade political power for different buffs. You can also choose to turn off news pop-ups and event pop-ups because they do get a little spammy. And you can also choose to turn off the gavel notification here if something's available for you to click on. You saw that the gavel disappeared right there. Now, a lot of countries are going to have mini games over here that you can play that have to do with some sort of historical event or something that happens historically, politically, something like that. So you will have to pay attention to this. For Germany, the mini game is the MIFO bills. I just don't worry about it. Just let it sit there. It's fine. You can cancel the MIFO bills if you want. I would not do it. It's better to just let them run out because you have a lot of bonuses for the MIFO bills there. Okay, moving on to your intelligence agency. You're going to trade civilian factories for things that you can do here in the intelligence agency. So I will create the agency, and in 30 days, it will be formed, and we will get our first spy. And then the spy will be able to do different missions in different countries. You can buff the spy network through these tabs right here. And then if you get buffs to the cryptology department, you'll basically be able to decrypt your opponent's ciphers, and that will give you a buff in combat. So cryptology is incredibly important, and you do need it, and it is meta to build intel agencies on all the majors. Okay, research is obvious. You're researching many different types of things here, but you're researching things that will buff your industry. You're further buffing research, radios and radar, air doctrine, sea doctrine, land doctrine, and then different vehicles for air, artillery, tanks, infantry equipment, and then furthermore, like the way that different special forces work and things like that. So you're going to have to go through this yourself. And what you want to do as a rule of thumb is you want to choose a different doctrine right here. I have a video on this. You can check it out. But your doctrine is going to determine what type of army you're going to build and how you're going to maneuver your army in battle. So it's incredibly important. And as a beginner, what I would do is try to focus on doctrine research right off the bat, because that's going to help you out quite a bit. And mobile warfare basically buffs tanks, superior firepower buffs artillery, grand battle plan buffs infantry, and mass assault buffs huge nations that can expend manpower, like the USSR or China. And then later it actually buffs tanks as well, but not as well as mobile warfare. So that's a rundown on the doctrines. The other thing that you want to focus on early, so we'll just give you a beginner example of how to set up your research. We'll start with doctrine, because doctrine is always good. We will then, typically all nations start with electronic mechanical engineering, because that further buffs all the research here. And then you start off with industry. And then you want to focus on the right of the screen right here. You want to focus on industry after you get electronic mechanical engineering, because all the equipment that you're going to need to make war is going to be from industry. So this is going to be super important. And as you're progressing here, you can see that it takes longer amounts of time, and that there are debuffs based on what year it is. It's 1936, so you don't have any debuffs for the 1936 tech, but it'll be incredibly expensive to get like 1939 tech because it's only 1936, if that makes any sense. What I would say is a good range, for a good rule of thumb. We're going to be doing a lot of rule of thumbs here, boys. Do not research anything that's over 300 days. That's kind of really expensive, and it's not going to be worth your time. Unless it's something that you're hard researching because it's so important, like doctrine. You can see that I'm hard researching doctrine because I'm focusing it because it is so important. So you need to bear that in mind. There's a reason why I did this, but more of the humdrum technologies, you're not going to want to waste a lot of research on like anti-tank unless you're an anti-tank country like France or something like that, and spend 600 days trying to get the Pack 40 or whatever if you're never going to use it, obviously. Okay, so that's research. We're gonna go to diplomacy. I ignore this screen. You can ignore it too. Construction, incredibly important here, guys. So if you're looking to speed run, I build military factories only. If you are looking to do a ramp as Germany, rule of thumb, start off with just a few conversions. So this is going to convert your existing military factories into civilian factories. So about 6 for Germany is good. And the reasoning behind this is all the things that you're producing, and we're going to get to this tab, all the things that you're producing right here are pretty much going to get outdated in a few years, right? Except for a few things. So my military production is basically wasted at the beginning of the game if I'm going to build better tanks and better planes and better guns, because I would rather have those better guns. So you're basically trading your military production early for military production later, and it kind of is going to go on a sinusoidal curve. So you're going to take away military factories to just shotgun them out later really quickly, if that makes any sense. Now, under the construction screen here, you're going to prioritize building things with better construction because it's faster. So I am going to build in all the 80 territories, and then I'm going to build one infrastructure in Moseland, and then I'm going to max out Moseland. So that one infrastructure is going to allow these factories to build faster in Moseland. The reason why I do it in this order is so that I can build civilian factories and have more civilian factories that will build the infrastructure faster, that will then build civilian factories faster in Moseland, if that makes any sense. You're creating a civ ramp. You're ramping up the production. So we should further stay on this screen, and there's a lot of different things that we could build here. We could build forts. We could build naval bases. The higher the level of the naval base, the more ships you're going to be able to fix and the more supply throughput across water. Fuel silos let you stockpile more fuel. In most cases, you don't need that. Synthetic refinery gives you more oil and more rubber. In the bigger countries, you're going to need synthetic refineries. We're not doing synthetic refineries right now. We're going to do it later after we build all of our civs, because that will shotgun out the synthetic refineries faster. Naval dockyards allow you to build ships under your production screen. Civilian factories allow you to basically build more things under the construction screen, and they're represented right here as this 15 out of 15 or 2 of 15. They are represented. So that means two civilian factories of 15 for this slot are building these 2 civilian factories here. It only builds one at a time, actually, in Westfalen. In Brandenburg, however, that's higher up, so you could switch your prioritization here with the arrows. But in Brandenburg, we have 15 civilian factories building its civilian factories. So this is going to come out a lot quicker. So the more civilian factories I build, the more of these fill up. That's not the whole story, though. That is modified by your economic law. And we are on partial mobilization. Consumer good factories are at 25%. So if we go back to the construction screen here, if you hover over like this, so we have 32 factories and use 31. Why are there only 17 here? It's because it's modified by your economic law. You own 31 civilian factories, and basically only get 17 because of that 25% debuff to the amount of factories that you're able to use for construction. And that's the consumer good factory. So it'll break it down here. Consumer goods. With our current economic policy, the people expect 16% of our number of civilian and military factories to produce consumer goods. This need is filled by civilian factories only, leaving us with 23 factories, where 23 can be used for trade. So because of the MIFO bill modification, we have -5%, and stability gives us -3%, but mobilization means that there's a 25% requirement that's going on there. So that modification, 25 minus 5 minus 3, we arrive at 16. It seems like it should be 17, but perhaps they round down. And so those civilian factories go to consumer goods instead of our production here. And you can see that there are 9 factories going to consumer goods. Kiss those factories goodbye. You will not see them again in the game. This is further modified by special projects because I am creating an intel agency. It took 5 civilian factories away from the construction here, trade and goods. We haven't gotten to this screen yet, but we're trading for tungsten that we don't need. You can tell we don't need it because it's yellow right here. So all I have to do is hit that box and we're not trading for tungsten. And then you will see that we now have 18 civilian factories under a construction tab here instead of 17. Okay, going down the list here, military factories that you build will basically fuel what you can produce militarily. Same with dockyards. The trick, though, with military factories, though, is as you build them, the amount of civs that you have will start to decrease because of the way that this screen works. So the more military factories that you have, it modifies the way that it works with the consumer goods. You'll start losing civilian factories. So you just have to think about that when you're playing the game. So there is kind of a teeter-totter relationship between civs and mills. So if you start off the game just building mills, you're going to run out of civs eventually. So that's a more, we're not going to cover that in this video, but you're just going to have to trust me on that and play with it. As you build mills, you'll lose civs over here. Okay, moving up the screen here, you could build more infrastructure items. You could build anti-air if you think you're going to be bombed. You're going to build air bases if you want to put up more air bases in certain provinces. And then infrastructure if you need to increase supply or construction to a certain area. Rule of thumb for this game, infrastructure of 5 or 6 should be fine. 5 is a little risky, 6 is where you want to be at. All of the supply for your armed forces comes from your capital. The capital is with the star. If your capital gets encircled, so you had forces over here on this front, they will not be supplied. So all the supply comes from the capital. Therefore, and this is on a logarithmic, I'm not a math guy, but it's like on a logarithmic scale. It is modified by the square root of some massive equation that I'm not going to explain to you. So pretty much as you increase infrastructure in your capital, supply for your whole nation increases. So typically, nations will max out the infrastructure of their capital because it increases the supply for everything. So we'll try to dive into supply a little later. But just trust me on that. Most nations max the infrastructure. The reason why you don't do it in Germany is that you get a focus. Reichsautobahn, they'll max the infrastructure for you. So that's why I'm not going to do it, because we're going to focus on building civs. because then we'll be able to build anything we want after we have a massive amount of civs. Okay, I think I skipped trade. As you saw, if I need rubber, for instance, I can trade with the Dutch East Indies. I can trade 1 civilian factory for 8 rubber. And that is typically the way it goes with non-puppeted nations. So if I have a puppet, that could be different based on the puppet level, but that's the basic trade rule. I give you 1 civ, you give me 8 raw resources. So that's how this screen works. It's pretty straightforward. If I need something, I just ask a nation for it, and they will give it to you 100% of the time. Now, it gets more complex when we talk about trade law, which is right here, because there will be less resources that go to market under this screen if your trade law is lower. In other words, like closed economy, none of your resources will go out. Free trade, 80% of your resources will go to market, and then you withhold 20 for your own nation to use. So we're not going to go too in depth on this. Those are all the nations that you can trade from. Just make sure that you're not trading from a nation that you plan to backstab and go to war with. Because if you're trading with Portugal and you're getting all your tungsten from Portugal, then you go to war with them, that's going to go away. You have to plan ahead. Hearts of Iron 4 is a game of planning and trades. You're trading one thing for another thing, and you're trying to make good trades. Trying to make good research trades. You're trying to make good raw resource trades. You're trying to make good construction trades. I construct civilian factories. What do I get from that? A ton of civs, so I can make whatever I want later. Okay, moving on down the screens here, you will see at the top raw resources. This will be modified, but by what you are constructing here under the production screen. As you can see, we are producing military equipment and naval equipment. Those are the 2 things that you will be able to produce under this screen. The military equipment, furthermore, has airplanes. So that is really, it covers Army, Air, Navy, and Air. And then some of these vehicles, as I showed you earlier, you can create variants of with the different experience that you have up here. But the vehicles that you're going to be able to modify are tanks, all types of planes, and then with Navy experience, you're going to be able to modify all the types of ships. Infantry equipment, you typically can't modify. You can modify armored cars, but you can't modify infantry equipment or trucks or artillery or support equipment. So there's a lot of equipment that you can't modify. Let me give you a tricky thing. If you're trying to do a min-max build, you can actually build cheaper equipment. If I just want trash weapons in the hands of my army so that I can access parts of the focus tree that were denied to me, and I just want occupational troops, and I don't care if you have a musket or not, click Show Outdated Equipment. And you can produce the 1898 version of the Gewehr rifle. And as you can see, it has less stats. It says outdated on it. But it's also cheaper. You can get more out. So if these aren't for mainline troops, you might consider building something that's outdated. Just a little trick there. Oh, there's the planes too. So typically, though, if you're using outdated equipment during a war, whoever is using that equipment's going to go very quickly because you're up against something that is superior, basically. So you don't want to mainline that equipment, but there might be different reasons why you could use it for training. You just want to get some old planes out, biplanes out for training, for instance, for training purposes. And so we'll go over that a little later, how to train. Okay. So further things in this screen, you can drag these up, up and down. And the reason why you do that is if you run out of raw resources, you can see like this plane at the bottom has a negative 25% production to it because the raw resources, we lack rubber basically. So this plane is only 20%. So what we could do is just swap these, and you can see then the debuff is applied to the higher plane at 20% and the lower plane at 25%. So you can prioritize and deprioritize things. Now, we're Germany, so we're probably going to do a land war in Asia, right? So we're not too concerned about the naval equipment that we're producing. A lot of German players will just delete this production and then just build screens for their battleships. Battleships will take a long time to come out, so it'll take a couple years, like 3 or 4 years to create. Like, this is already a quarter produced and it's going to come out in 1942. So you're not going to be able to, it's 1936. It's going to take 6 years unless we ramp up the production. So probably can speed it out in 2, but battleships are not going to be that useful for Germany because Germany has a good army and should exploit that fact. So you want to think about what you're producing and what the raw material costs are going to be. For an artillery piece, you're going to get a lot of value out of artillery as a beginner because you're going to battle plan infantry a lot. And artillery uses 1 tungsten and 2 steel. So if I produce 1, that's going to come out of your stockpile up here. And you can go negative, but as we saw below, that's going to negatively modify your production. Going into the individual production lines, it's going to get a bit more complex. But there's a few concepts that I want to introduce you to. This gray bar right here, Germany starts the game with it full. And basically, that is production efficiency. And you could buff this through research. So basic machine tools here increases the production efficiency cap. And the production efficiency cap makes the gray bar go up. However, if I build a new production line, or if I add a new mill to this production line after I hit go, you will lose production efficiency and you'll have this red bar here. So the production efficiency is only 10%. As opposed to what it could be. So let's go head to head with a car carabiner, the Mauser rifle. So you're going to produce, I have 1 military factory on the full production efficiency up here. You're going to produce 5 of these rifles a day, whereas the one without production efficiency is 1. So that's 1/5 the production value just on production efficiency alone. And that's the big secret to why you focus on industry early as whatever country you're going to play. Basically, equipment here translates into success later for you. So if you're able to produce a lot more equipment than your opponent, you're going to be able to overwhelm them and win. You can also see the raw resources here to the right of what you need. You can modify the military factories by multiples of 10 or multiples of 5. Each one of these goes up to a total, each production line goes up to a total of 150 military factories. And then you could delete the production line by hitting the trash can right there. As Germany single player, I like to start off with 17 of that type of equipment, of infantry equipment. 1 armored car. We could build towed artillery. 3 support equipment. Let's go 1 tank. You don't need a lot of trucks. You're going to steal a lot of trucks from France. And then we'll just go, we'll simp out on tanks and we'll just build like that right there. Let's put 1 mil on transport planes, because with the No Step Back DLC, transport planes are going to be necessary, I think, with the logistical problems that you're going to be facing. And then we're going to do towed anti-air. This piece of equipment, towed anti-air, is incredibly versatile. Don't overlook its importance, because not only can it shoot things out of the sky, it can go head-to-head with tanks because there's a piercing value to it. Okay, moving along here, we're going to get to the recruit and deployment screen. And this screen is going to allow you to make your army. You get to choose what province you want to, for these units to spawn. You could choose to not have them spawn anywhere by just not selecting a province, and they'll stay here in the stockpile. Now, the components to building or training new divisions are these little boxes here. The majority type of regiment in the division is denoted by the helmet, means infantry. The tanks means tanks, and then the trucks means motorized infantry. Excuse me. So you could train different divisions, and you can prioritize what equipment spawns into the divisions here as you go along. By green means high priority, red means low priority. So if I want all the infantry equipment to go into the infantry division first before the tank, for whatever reason, I would modify that there. Likewise, you could like deprioritize garrisons, like all my guns are going to go into these troops first. Or overall, if I deprioritize garrisons, I can reinforce my frontline divisions first. So that means all the guns will go to the frontline divisions. And if the frontline divisions are consuming all the guns, no guns will go into training. So this is incredibly useful depending on what you want for what situation. And a lot of the other things are kind of more intuitive. Operations means you can, with spies or other things, you can make civil wars in other countries. So you could prioritize giving guns to a coup or something like that. So that's what that's all about. And upgrades prioritizes upgrading the equipment that you have in the field first, I believe. So now what do these mean? What am I training? Well, you're training these division templates right here. And then, as I said before, you modify these division templates with army experience. So army experience is quite important in this game because how your army functions, how your army attacks and defends is going to be incredibly important. This is a military game. And the way that the game is set up, I'm going to give you a brief rundown on the attack and defense system. But basically, if I had these divisions right here attacking this province has a combat width of 80. So that means that I can only have a division width of 80 attack this province right here if there was an enemy. You'll see under this screen right here, combat width. That's going to be one of the most important stats out of all these stats. The other stat is going to be organization. You want to keep organization high. That's the green bar on your divisions. And you want to keep your combat width in multiples of 20. Because it just so happens that 80, that standard combat width within a province, 20 fits into that. So you can also have multiples of 40. So you can make this combat width 40. Now, to make this 20, all I need to do is add one infantry regiment, and then we're balanced. So essentially, I could get 4 divisions into combat because they'd all be 20 width. 20 times 4 is 80. You got it. Awesome. You could also put 2 40 width divisions into combat as well. And so if you had a division that was wonky like 14, 14 doesn't fit into multiples of 80 well, you would not be maximizing the amount of troops you would be able to bring to bear in said combat. So I'm not demonstrating it here, so you're just going to have to trust me on this. That's the way the combat works. So to review, combat width, incredibly important. Multiples of 20 and 40. If you cannot do 20 and 40, it's going to be like 12, 14, and 18 will be acceptable as well. And mainly, that's going to be for your Panzer divisions. Because they're going to be able to function pretty well in a single-player game if you keep their combat widths 12, 14, or 18. Also, infantry does not do that bad with a combat width of 18. I'm talking in instances where you're going to be saving army XP to buff a tank template or something like that. So there's different template types. You can see that this is a tank one. This is a motorized one. The basic rule of thumbs that you want for like a tank divisions are incredibly important. Infantry, let's just give you the standard infantry template. There you go. You're done. Good night. You can play the whole game with an infantry template like this. You're fine. Don't think you're fine, guys. Don't think about it again. You're done. Don't obsess over it. You're done there. You could even, like, if you don't think you have air superiority with fighters, you could go this. That's it. Go no further. Tanks. Okay. Tanks is where it's going to get a bit more complicated. You're on the move. You're mobile warfare. You're attacking, and you're with an armored vehicle that's fast. Those are with a lot of firepower. That's the benefit of a tank. Best division in the game is going to be a tank. Best thing in the game is going to be this template right here. So you better watch. Watch closely. If you're playing single player, it would be ideal to go 20 width. You do not want to do this because your second best stat is organization, and your organization is 18. You want to keep that around above 32, 33, something like that. So how do I keep organization up? I add motorized infantry regiments. And you're probably not going to be able to do this, but the best tank division that you're going to be able to make is going to consist of 10 tanks and 8 motorized infantry or mechanized infantry, whatever. But as you can see, the organization went back up. So we want to stay around 30. That's going to be our good number right there. Sorry, this is going to be the template because it's the combat width is 40. And then your organization is going to be around 27. So I guess anything over around 28 would be good. I'm going to backpedal on that one. Now, a stat that is important to a tank division is speed. Speed, the light tanks are quite quick, but the motorized is even quicker. So I think these light tanks are 10 kilometers per hour. The motorized is 12. So you have to worry about like how fast you're going. If I put in heavy tanks, for instance, though, my speed is on this division template designer goes down from 12 to 5 because you'll only go as fast as your slowest regiment. Right? And then to further complicate the situation, I get this question a lot. Do support regiments slow down the template speed? No, they don't. Interchange these support regiments however you want. So let's talk about the support regiments. They're incredibly important, particularly for tank templates. You're going to want recon. You're going to want engineers. You're also going to want to eventually, if you're a tank country, you're going to want maintenance companies, keep those tanks healthy, and logistics companies, keep those tanks supplied. And you'd fill them in here, and it does not modify speed at all. Other stats that are gonna come up eventually for you is piercing. And right now, piercing is binary. Your projectile can either pierce the armor of a tank or it can't. Your attack will be reduced if you cannot pierce the armor of whatever equipment you're going up against. Mostly it's going to be tanks. Your tank division has a piercing value here. So if I have a piercing of 22 and I'm up against a tank with a piercing of 20, a tank division with a armor of 20 rather, I will pierce them and I will not get the, I forget if it's a 30 or 40% combat debuff. So piercing is very important in land combat. If you cannot pierce your opponent, you get that combat debuff of either 30 or 40%. I think it's 30%. So that's basically, this would not, for single player, this would be an excellent template to have. You're going to run all over the map with this template. And that's basically it that I'm going to go over here. There's many other things that we could dive into in the recruit and deploy screen. The logistics screen is going to tell you how much stuff you have in stockpile. And logistics will flow, the equipment in the logistics screen will flow from your capital out to wherever your divisions are. And you can check how this is going by the supply area map mode. So if you have low supply in an area, this shows you your supply throughput. This stuff in the stockpile will get to where it's going slower. So you need to worry about that logistics screen quite a bit. It's pretty straightforward. You could see here how much supply is required in a certain area and how much you're actually supplying it. And then, for instance, I was building transport planes because transport planes can have a mission to increase supply for a certain area. So you can get more supply by building infrastructure to a certain area and then also using the transport planes to get supply to that area. Main rule of thumb here under logistics, don't let there be anything negative of equipment that you're actually using, because you will incur a debuff. So, man, all these divisions are filled with equipment. However, if they're not, you see that the division equipment ratio is 100%. Well, if you're losing equipment due to combat, like the support equipment and the infantry equipment are getting blown up, essentially, this percentage is going to go down, and the equipment that the division has goes down and is resupplied at the however well you are supplied. So if everything gets blown up real quick and you're not getting supply, like say it's a Stalingrad type situation, the combat effectiveness of your division is going to go way down, like way down. So you want to keep all your divisions supplied with equipment. You might have to take a little break. You might have to take a little pause while your equipment fills up. The equipment in a division is shown by this tan bar right here. So let's get into some combat mechanics here. Trying to think, yeah, let's do that, and then I'll go over the other parts over here. So while we're on the topic of land warfare, the green bar, as I said before, is organization. The tan bar is the amount of equipment your division has. Now, your divisions will compose an army, and you're going to be able to create an army simply by hovering over these divisions and then right-clicking them into whatever army you have created down here. An army needs a general. So if you pick this screen right here, you could pick whatever general you want. And the generals have buffs, and they're better at things and they're worse at things. Some of them have debuffs. So we'll pick Rommel for this infantry army that I just produced. It says 9 out of 24 because if I add more than 24 divisions to this army, their combat effectiveness will go down. Now, an army is comprised of an army group. And what I did was just click on this army, and then I right-clicked on the Field Marshal tab over here. The Field Marshal tab is denoted by these oak leaves. If you're a history buff, you could see that Rommel here has his oak leaves because in this picture he was a field marshal, most likely in North Africa. So we have created an army group here, and we can literally make multiple armies and pull them in. Now let's pick our field marshal. We only have 3 field marshals to choose from. You can always promote a general to a field marshal. They will get a little debuff, and you use command power to do that. We have no command power built up yet. So for this army, we're going to choose Kluge. For this army, we're going to choose Guderian. So we have our army group set up here. So to have the army group, to get them basically into an attack formation, we're going to use this frontline tool right here. Since I'm clicked on the field marshal, this gave me field marshal orders, automatically assigning both armies to their own little front. So you see the tan and the blue there, and this will give them a battle plan on this particular front. If I was to take the armies individually and put them in an area, I could give the army itself an individual battle plan. And as you see, I just created a new battle plan over here, and I have one right here. I can change those battle plans by simply choosing this plus symbol right here, the division assignment mode, and toggling them over to the new battle plan that I assigned. In Hearts of Iron 4, even if I was to want to micro these tanks right here, you will need a battle plan to get a buff. These battle plans typically take about 20 days to reach their max effectiveness. And the battle plans are further modified by what land doctrine you choose. But basically, if you don't have a battle plan and you attack with these tanks right here, you're not going to have the attack potential that you normally would have. So what we do in multiplayer is we create a dummy battle plan that we're never going to use, and then we unassign the divisions to the battle plan. Here, let's micro this guy too. So this battle plan is empty. It exists. It's here. And then the army will receive a bonus for the battle plan, no matter where it is on the map, no matter what this is pointing to, it doesn't matter. You have the battle plan up. These divisions aren't even part of the battle plan. It works. Trust me, it works. So now I can move these guys wherever I want around the map. I can make encirclements. I can encircle Warsaw so that the Polish don't have supply anymore. But they will attack and defend better because I have the battle plan up. So that is a hint and trick. If I have just a purely army group of just infantry, what I would suggest is just using your tool, clicking on the field marshal and shift clicking to get the field marshal orders, and that makes it so they kind of like stick together better. And then just you can use a basic battle plan for the infantry. And then what you need to learn how to do eventually is micro the tanks. So use the tanks as I showed you here, and then just make encirclements with the tanks. I'm hitting shift as I do that. I'm shift right clicking. And that is how Hearts of Iron 4 is currently played. The infantry actually matter little. The tanks matter a lot because the situation where you're going to deal the most damage is encircling your opponent and then attacking it. because your opponent, as we said before, your opponent, when they're encircled, they're not going to receive supply, right? Unless they're getting airdrops. So they will have that equipment debuff that I told you about, because you are taking equipment away from them as you're attacking them, and they're not getting resupplied with equipment because they're in encirclement. And there are other bonuses that you get with that. We're not going to go into all the combat bonuses that are available to you, but I will tell you the most powerful bonus in the game, the second most powerful, the most powerful is encirclements. The second most powerful is when you're on the defense, defending behind a river line. That will give you the second most powerful bonus. And that's typically used on the defensive. The offensive is encirclements with tanks, of course. So hiding behind this river line is incredibly powerful. And you'll see that time and time again if you ever watch multiplayer games. What I just did here is incredibly powerful. If you're going to be attacking, you're going to want to use the front line tool. If you're going to be defending, the fallback line is incredibly important. It's way better than area defense. Area defense is just bad. Take the time to make individual fallback lines because you can keep them right behind the river line. You can also micro a lot easier. Like I'm just putting these on the ports to protect against naval invasion. You don't need to protect the whole coast. You just need to protect the ports because, again, any division that like naval invades, like this tile right here, if they don't have a port, they're not getting supply. They basically put themselves in an encirclement. So that's why all you need to do is really cover the ports with your 20 width infantry division. Say goodnight, you're done. And you only need to do that if you're in like a multiplayer game. A lot of the times in a single player game, it's fairly obvious through experience. You'll figure it out where the AI attack and when they'll attack. It's fairly straightforward. But if you want to be on the safe side, just do that fallback line on the ports. And there are a few things here that I'm going to touch on shortly. You could do paratrooper orders right here. You need to have a certain amount of air superiority to be able to complete the paradrop mission. We'll get into that a little bit later, what air superiority is. And then naval invasion, basically, you could set up naval invasions from ports into whatever coastline you want, but you need to have superiority in the naval regions that you cross. Okay, so I guess we're in a good spot to go over what air superiority is and what naval superiority is. It is basically saying that you own the skies or you own the seas. Macro, like, so basically down here to the lower right, the main things that you're going to be using is toggling between your army, your navy, your air force, and your spies. We don't have a spy yet, so you don't see it. But as you toggle through it, if you're on air, you'll see that this is lit up. If we were in a war, it would light up different shades of green and different shades of yellow and different shades of red. You go from red is bad, yellow is vanilla, it's okay, and then green is air superiority. And if you have green, your units will be able to move a lot quicker and they will attack better. So you always want green over your armored spearhead. That's one of the rules of thumb. And if you're trying to do a naval invasion, you're going to need to have a certain percentage of naval superiority in order to complete your naval invasion here. I think it's like 80%. Green air can help you get naval superiority. So if I put planes up over this province, the sea province right here, that would assist in giving me naval superiority. However, naval plans will not give air superiority, obviously. unless the Navy is shooting down enemy fighters that are in that region. But the Navy strictly stays in the sea. Airplanes can actually go over sea or land. Okay. So to further dive into combat in general, we're going to get away from land combat and more into air combat, which, as I alluded to, there is a naval component to that. So air wings can basically be useful on land or in the sea. They can be used to drop supplies. These transport planes can be used to transport paratroops. And they will be able to transport paratroops only if you have the appropriate air superiority. Naval bombers like this can do naval strikes and port strikes. You're mostly going to be doing naval strikes. Port strikes require a certain amount of air superiority to be able to complete. So you can see that air superiority is very important for many different reasons. So the most powerful air unit is going to be your fighters. If you only build fighters, you'll be okay. You only build fighters. If you want to do some naval stuff, you're probably going to need to build nav bombers, naval bombers. The other things that you could do is close air support. And then you're going to be wanting to use the air superiority tab in most cases. Interception only if you're getting strategic bombed. Close air support is just what you think it is. The bomber comes in and assists the ground divisions in whatever battle they're in. Very straightforward. The different bombers will deal damage to the opposing ground divisions, and that is modified by how much enemy AA is present as well. We're not going to get too in depth into that. Your air wings are going to be in multiples of 100 because your airports are in multiples of 200. If you look at all the airports, they're all like 1200, 600. And if you built an airport under the construction screen, you build an airport right there, it's going to be 200 when it comes out. In single player, I like to use 200 because it's easier to move the air wings around the map. It is most optimal to keep your air wings at 100. And this is because, like this is the perfect example. This air wing has an ace, and the ace has bonuses. And the ace will get the maximum amount of bonus if your air wing is at 100. So keep your air wings in multiples of 100, I would say, as a rule of thumb. That's what you want to be doing, but for ease of micro, I do 200. There are tabs up here that you can split the air wing in half. So it's split, it was 100, now it's 50. Or if I had stockpiled reserves of things, I can duplicate the air wing. So if you see a stockpile of a large amount of TAC bombers here, you can quickly just hit that button. These buttons are incredibly useful and will reduce the amount of micro that you're going to be doing, and your quality of life will improve if you use these. It behooves you to learn these buttons up here. Okay. Moving on. I have an air guide you should check out if you want a deep dive into air combat. But moving on, we're going to go on to naval stuff. So your navies have admirals. You can buff the admirals the same as generals. We're not going to dive into that. You assign the navy's missions. The most important missions here are naval invasion support, so that you can get this amphibious landing off. Convoy rating for subs. And then strike force for big boy battles if you're going up against another navy. And that's pretty much all you need to know in this screen. If you're a beginner, that's all you need to know. Subs, only assign them convoy rating if you're a beginner. And then the normal navies, you want to either assign them strike force to defend against naval invasions and things like that, or you want to assign them naval invasion support if you have an amphibious landing. Now I'm going to tell you a little trick here. If I add the convoy raiding mission to these provinces where I'm trying to do the amphibious assault here, it will gain naval superiority. And like I said before, if I add the planes to those sea provinces, it will also give you more naval superiority. So that's going to be a big thing in the game when you're trying to do an amphibious landing and you can't have it go off because you don't have enough naval superiority. I have a guide on amphibious landings. You'll just have to search for it on YouTube. It'll come up. But so that's all we're going to go into about Navy. This game is going to boil down a lot to land wars in Asia for most countries. So I'm not a big Navy guy, and that's all we're going to do about Navy. We're not going to deep dive any more than that. Okay, so if you have any questions about combat, please leave them in the comment section below. One last thing about land combat. If you battle plan instead of encircling with tanks, you'll suffer a lot of equipment losses of infantry equipment. So if this is what you're going to do because you're a beginner and you're going to battle plan, you toggle the battle plan off and on right here. That will make your armies, this army group, attack up to this line, and then they will stop. If you're going to do that, you're going to waste a lot of infantry equipment. So make sure before your battle, whatever it is, if you're invading Poland, you probably want about 20,000 infantry equipment in your stockpile. If you're invading Russia, you're going to want like 150,000 infantry equipment in your stockpile. I would even to say, if you're doing Barb, I would even go so far as to say you want less divisions in your armies just to have more equipment in stockpile. Because if you're in a situation where you're negative stockpile and you're active in a war, in combat, none of your troops in the front line are getting equipment, or they're getting it very slowly. That's the worst situation you can be in, guys. You don't want to see negative here for people that are in the front line. For groups that need like infantry equipment, that's a bad situation to be in. Make sure your stockpiles are prepared before you start war. So that's why I'm always like, you'll see me on multiplayer games like looking at the stockpile. How many tanks do I have? How much infantry equipment do I have? And then I modify how much I'm producing based on what my stockpile looks like. And you get an idea, you get a feel about how much each war is going, how much equipment each war is going to take. That just takes experience. And you'll get kind of a spidey sense to kind of dead reckon what you need in your stockpile before each particular war. So don't be afraid to go in, play games. Just play games over again. Fine. Just go quick. Go quick. Test out different things. Go to another game, and then that'll be your like main game. Like, don't be afraid to experiment. This is a game of experimentation. It's very complex. It is a very complex game. If you want to know more about general traits, I have tutorials on that as well. Just know that they are available. I believe the field marshal traits count in every one of the armies half, unless it is a field marshal trait. I don't know the individual numbers on these traits, but if it's a field marshal, mainly pay attention to the field marshal traits. If you're an offensive nation, the best thing that you can get is aggressive salter, offensive doctrine, organization first, and then logistics wizard, in that order. You need logistics wizard if you're going to be attacking in Barbarossa, which is the attack into Russia from the Germans. Or if you're just doing local attacks, you don't need this. So I would say that these two are the best, then organization, then logistics. That's what you're worried about with field marshal. With your infantry generals, you're going to want infantry expert if you're battle planning. With your tank generals, like you see that I put Guderian on the tanks, you get Panzer expert, armor division defense 10%, and you can execute blitz and encirclement tactics. So that's why you get you use like Guderian on the Panzer army. And so that's all I'm going to do with that. Let's move on to the rest of the UI screen here. So up at the top, this starts and stops the date and time, and you have the different speed levels. That's pretty straightforward. This percentage here is world tension, and if you remember, if you go back to Rhineland, this focus here creates 5% world tension. Why? Because Germany is occupying, they're breaking the Versailles Treaty and occupying Rhineland. So that increases world tension. Every country has focuses in events and decisions that increase world tension. What you need to know is that the Allies are buffed when world tension is greater than 10%. And USA is buffed when world tension is greater than 30%. USA is huge. So to simulate World War II, the devs have put in like stopgaps here. Germany is mainly limited by how much army that they can field, and then the Allies are mainly limited by world tension. So you can play with that, but basically know as soon as world tension is above 10%, then that turns the Allies on, and they have boosts through their focus tree to production. After world tension is above 30%, the Allies, the democratic nations, will be able to do a lot more to stop you as an Axis nation. So that's why you're looking at that. You can make different theaters on different parts of the map. If you have like North Africa, and then you have like a European front, and then another one of these screens will show up. You can also see your combat losses over time and what divisions are performing best. So that's handy. Moving down to this screen over here, it's easier to see resources if you use the resource tab. Resistance will occur after you occupy a territory. You'll be able to see how much resistance there is in the occupied territory. Occupied territory tab is grayed out because we're not occupying anything. Let's walk you through. So you'll be faster to get out cavalry. If I hit shift and add unit, it goes a lot quicker. Let's walk you through the occupation screen. And so what we're going to do here is try to rush Anschluss, which is going to spike world tension. That's why you do not rush Anschluss, because after we're done here, world tension should be greater than 10%. We're building stuff there. It looks good. I'm trying to think, was there anything else that I don't want to build? Oh, this should be down here. We're doing civ converts. Okay, we got the Abwehr, and then we're going to go cryptology department. Cryptology is denoted by the magnifying glass under the combat bubbles. And the current meta is to not pop your cipher. In other words, so you will get cryptology levels on opponents, and you can use a cipher for a combat bonus for like 30 days or something like that. It's the current meta to just decrypt a nation and not actually pop the cryptology level, because it gives you a raw bonus anyways, and after you use that order, you no longer get the buff from the basic decryptology. We're going to keep going there. That obviously costs civilian factories. Okay, we got Rhineland. We could get some of these troops out. It would be better if I just stayed on that screen. I'm not able to get Anschluss yet. Let's turn everyone into motorized. We can modify our government. As Germany, you typically go free trade first because that gives you bonuses to research and construction. And then we're just going to sit here and wait for Anschluss. And then as you can see, we can decrypt a cipher on France if we want to. It's going to take 959 days, but that will be reduced by us increasing the level of the cryptology department there. Okay, still can't go that. We have a new research here. And what I will choose to do is wait. So I'm just going to play for a little bit here to demonstrate a few things to you. Okay, we got the radio interception group. We've got our spy building up a spy network in France. And after the network is up to a certain level, we will be able to have that spy complete certain missions. We've saved this. We're saving research on this because I'm going to stack it onto construction, we'll say. This is more of an advanced technique, but you're able to basically boost research of certain things by saving up research slots like I'm doing right now. And this is typically called research juggling. So I'm going to wait for basic machine tools to go off. And then I'm going to take construction off. And the construction was at like 100 days, let's say. We're going to take it off and reapply it. And that saved 30 days. So it must have been at 39 days. So that took 39 days off of this particular research. It was at 39. Now it's down to 9. More advanced techniques. If you don't understand it, don't obsess over it. Don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry about it. Okay, so we get all these guys out. What are we doing? Why do we care about this? What's going on here? What is ESG doing? Well, this division template, the motorized, has a lot of people in it. And our focus tree, we're not able to go Anschluss unless we have 500k manpower in the field. So what I'm doing is exploiting a little bit, but what I'm doing is getting more manpower in the field so I can go rush Anschluss. And I'm not doing it the most optimal way, but if you want to see how much manpower in the field, you see under army, you see in the field, you can see that the manpower comes out slowly. It doesn't come out all at once. We talked about this. And then if I want it to come out quicker, I can just put out divisions that are not fully trained. Typically, you want to fully train the divisions before you get them out of the stockpile, unless you're doing something like I'm doing. Okay, now the focus is turned on. We can rush Anschluss. Let's go back to our intel agency here. We are decrypting the cipher, which gives us a raw combat bonus. Done there. Just decrypt ciphers. Don't do anything else with ciphers. You'll be good. As you can see, the amount of days went way down because we're starting to buff our radio interception group. And soon, as soon as this intel network is up further, she will be able to do missions. And I'm going to show you the best type of mission to do and kind of how that works. I am saving political power to do a more advanced technique here. I'm going to save this political power and I'll show you an advanced technique. But you are able to save it. You don't have to keep clicking buttons. Oh, actually, it looks like I have 300 political power. That's okay. We have all this manpower in the field. If I was to delete these units, then that would delete this focus tree right here. So you have to be careful about that. And then we could turn off this battle plan. It doesn't really matter. Okay, nationalist Spain declares war. Okay. So here's the advanced technique. We need this army experience a lot. Why? We already described why. It buffs our research for our mobile warfare doctrine. We could have spent research. We could have spent army experience to research this quicker. And this right here is the most powerful research in the game if you're backed up with this research. So probably it's a chicken or the egg thing. They're both important, but one begets the other. Okay. We need Army XP for that. We need Army XP to create tank variants. This game is all about tanks and making big ones with big guns that are fast and run over things. So it's awesome. We need Army XP for that. And we need Army XP to make our division templates a perfect 20 width. You saw we got 5 Army XP because of Rhineland focus. I'll use that. Now we have our perfect 20 width. For all you guys that are OCD, yes, it's perfect 20 width now. 18 will do fine. 20 does a little better. You can actually take this off. I don't really care about that. So where am I going with this? We're trying to get more army experience. Well, a good way of doing this is by sending volunteers to Spain and sending us an attaché. So if we send an attaché, we have enough political power. We have enough command power. We need 50 command power. They will not accept. Okay, so we probably need to lend lease something with them first. Let's give them... I don't have any weapons in stockpile, do I? Okay, I digress. We're still doing Anschluss, though. Let's wait till Anschluss is over to give them weapons that I don't have. And what we're going to do is, so the other way we could make them like us is we could improve relations. That takes political power. And so we could also become a spy master to get an extra spy. So this gives us an extra spy. We're going to hold off on that because we're going to use our political power right now. But you can see how many things I'm microing. There's several things going on at the same time. That's what this game teaches you. It teaches you how to micromanage, keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on several things at once. And so now that we're done with Anschluss and I don't care about my army requirements, we'll go over here actually. This is how you take out a focus. You hit that little X right there. And then to focus something else, you can change it. Let's delete our army here so that I can have infantry equipment in stockpile. Bam. So we'll give 10K to Spain. Start Lend-Lease. And then we'll give them 1 support equipment monthly, 10K infantry equipment once. Okay, perfect. They accepted it. We can't send attaché, so now we can send attaché because they like us. Then a funny thing happens. So we've spiked world tension. And we sent the attaché. Now war economy is available to us because we have 50% more than war support. So I'm pretty sure sending the attaché, I'm sure that sending the attaché increases war support, which allows us to increase our economy. And then I just want to show you guys this. We have 23 civilian factories. Watch the magic of this. So we, just to summarize, we sent an attaché to Spain by lend-leasing equipment to them so that they would like us. And then That spiked our war support enough to where we could increase our war economy. And then this went from 8 to 11. So that gave us 3 more civilian factories, which will further increase the amount of civilian factories we'll be able to produce in the future because it snowballs. Okay, you get the point. But basically, that is a way of increasing war support, sending attaches. And then also you'll see here, it's another way of increasing army experience, which you can use on all the things that I listed. Incredibly powerful. Our attaché in nationalist Spain gives us 20% of their military experience. So that means what they're doing, 20% of us, 20% of it comes to us. And then we can use the army XP to buff our army. So that's incredibly important. And then if I even want to be more meta, we'll send troops. I think I just have to wait a little bit. We need at least 30 divisions. Okay. So I messed up, but if I furthermore, I could send volunteers and act in their war, actually. But you need, that's modified by how many divisions you have in the field. The more divisions you have in the field, the more volunteers that you can send, and the more army XP that you'll get, because you will get army XP from the attaché, as aforementioned. And then you'll also get army XP from the frontline units that are participating in this war. There will also be a checkbox to send air volunteers. If you send air volunteers, yes, you will get air experience as well. Your Navy is not able to participate in the war, though. So this is a way pre-war of massively getting ahead, making those trades that we're talking about. What are we trading? Old, janky infantry equipment for army XP. We're trading the old equipment for buffing the tanks that we'll be making. The new, brand new, shiny Tiger tanks, if you want to build Tigers, because that army XP will translate into bigger guns, bigger engines, more reliability, thicker armor. So that's a really good thing to do. Okay, Anschluss just procced, and since I have the news pop-up off, you can manually click it there. We now have Austria. We will get Austrian divisions, but the main point of why I showed you this is now we have an occupied territory. So we are occupying this region, but there is no resistance because they amicably came over to our side. If you go Fate of Czechoslovakia, though, there will be resistance against you because it was kind of a forced thing. So the occupied territories tab, this is what I want to show you guys. Civilian oversight, don't modify this at all. Just keep it on civilian oversight. That's going to be a huge quality of life. You can go through and change this if you need to like martial law, if resistance is getting out of hand. In vanilla, in a regular experience level, that's not going to happen. You're going to be fine. You also want to change the division template to horse, because horse incorporates resistance suppression right there. 8. Look at this. This is a bigger division template. The suppression is 15, but if I increased the horse template to 20 width, the suppression stat of that would go up as well. You get the idea. And it would be greater than the infantry suppression stat. Okay, so this is a 20 width. Suppression is 20 instead of 15. So you want to use the horse. It does not matter how much you have in here. If you're just going to go with horse, if you just go with horse, like any division width will be fine, because the AI will simply stack more divisions if needed. So you basically win at the point at which you just you use the Schnell division basically that you get from Austria. You win at this point. You're done. Don't think about it again. Put it on reserves so the equipment is deprioritized to your occupied nations. You're done. Don't worry about it. The thing to worry about, though, is setting this up properly at first. And then as you occupy more and more nations, there's going to be resistance, and your troops are behind the scenes. You don't see this fighting in the background. And if you hit this tab right here, the garrison log, you will see how much equipment and manpower is lost. This is kind of a core, but doesn't work. But if, for instance, if you had a puppet, you can ask for garrison manpower. And so that's what this means, the foreign support. So say I puppeted, I don't know, British Raj. I could ask them for volunteers if they were my puppet. And if they accepted, they could give me manpower that I could use for my garrisons. So that's what that means. Show resistance on map. We don't have any right now, but there'll be a heat map that comes up. Red is bad. Yellow is okay. Orange is bad. So as it increases, like a civil war will basically break out. And you can use your spies. You can micro your spies and use the root out resistance function. And you'll actually be able to reduce resistance where the resistance pockets are. And that's about all that you need to know about this screen. Other than if you're showing... Let's see what else we need to do here. I have a feeling I didn't buff. Army department. So you can micro them around. You can root out pockets of resistance, and the spies will lower resistance in certain areas. But yeah, that's basically all you need to know about this screen here. Compliance is a function of how compliant a occupied territory is. And the higher the compliance, the less the resistance, the more resources you get. And the reason why the current meta is to go civilian oversight and let resistance kind of spike a little bit is because your compliance gains quicker. And as you can see, your compliance gain is less, denoted by these red number values here. The higher up you go on your occupied territory screen there. Okay, so we're going to put our second spy in France. And once we get our second spy in there and we're above 80% intel network, basically you can get all of these different missions for the spy to complete. I'll tell you basic things here. Intel networks that are robust, like 100% in certain areas, will buff battle plans. So no matter what, having a good intel network on your spies in certain areas where you're attacking will buff your attack. So you need to know that. So microing your spies, really important. Number two, when you get this option, the best thing to do to a country that you're about to occupy is infiltrate civilian administration. Because as soon as you occupy said country, like France, you will get higher compliance. And as I said, higher compliance translates into less resistance, more resources, more factories. Incredibly important to the overall meta of the game. You will not need to do this in single player. You will not need to do it. But if you want to be OP, if you want to do an OP build, by all means, infiltrate civilian administration. So let me show you how to do that. You can do this really quick. It's not as hard as it looks. It's pretty clunky. I'm sure they'll update it. Don't worry. It'll be updated. They hit prepare. Just hit both of your spies. Commence when ready. Automatically repeat. Boom. Those spies will then, when this is prepared, go off Intel network, excuse me, and complete said mission. The other things that you could do is you can infiltrate the army and then steal army blueprints. You can infiltrate the Navy, the Air Force, etc., etc. But mainly the civilian infiltration, civilian administration is going to give you the most bang for your buck. And you see that those guys went off the network onto this. And once they're done infiltrating civilian administration, they will further micro. They'll come back here, and you'll have to put them back in to build up the Intel network again, so that they can do this again. I believe you can max this out at 3. You could have 3 civilian administration. Starting to get tired. You'd have 3. What do we call it? 3 levels of infiltrate civilian administration is what I'll call it. There's another word for it. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little tired. We're going to have to end the video soon. I'm sorry if I didn't cover all the areas that I said I would. I'm pretty sure that we went over everything that I said I would go over, and then I got to go back through your comments and then make individualized videos for you guys to answer your individual questions. Okay, become Spy Master. This is going to be one of the last things that I show you. So you click on this, you're the Spy Master, and then basically that costs political power, and then when you've done 3 different branches of your agency, you're going to get another spy. But becoming the Spy Master allows you to have another spy. So if you're a sneaky spy guy, that's what you can do. You can also get another spy by getting Wilhelm Carneris, operative slots 1, agency upgrade time -15%. It's interesting because I believe Carneris was a double agent and actually leaked information to the British, but don't mind that. That was later in the war, I'm sure. But yes, that is how you get more spy slots. So that is, spies are pretty powerful, particularly in SP. If you don't want to play with spies at all, don't worry about it. Not playing with spies means that you will have more civilian factories. More civilian factories, more military factories. More military factories, more tanks. More tanks equal you win the game. If you only build fighters and tanks and infantry equipment, you can win this game easy peasy lemon squeezy. You don't need anything else. Eventually, I mean, you don't even need Navy, because as long as you're able to Sea Lion, which you could do with the air and your existing Navy, you could then build up your Navy later, pretty much. But if you're looking to take over the USSR, all you need is infantry equipment, tanks, and fighters. Building other equipment makes it easier, but I guarantee you could get that done. What else can I touch on here? So that would be stellar equipment to make. If you go infantry equipment only, you can mess around in this game so many ways, guys. But if you only built infantry equipment and you took off all the other types of equipment, you can win the game that way too. It would be probably easier if you put fighters in the mix as well, because then you'll get air superiority, which will give you all those nice buffs that I was talking about. But you can win the game with infantry equipment only battle planning. And the reason why that works is because of production efficiency. You're able to make so much equipment. You can overwhelm your opponents as Germany. If you're minors, that doesn't work. But as majors, you can do that, and it works against the AI. And that's going to be it for this basic overview tutorial. I know we went into more, I don't know, a little more complex things, but it's hard for me to kind of boil things down now that I played for so long. So if you have individual questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll either answer the questions or make a video like this one for you. I'm going to end this video and then start making videos that viewers have asked for. You guys, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.